First, I'm going to give you guys a quick bio about me because other than you all know that I'm 61 years old. Let me also tell you. Okay, I did start the fashion beat at the Wall Street Journal in 1989. I started the journal in '84 and covered airlines, covered the courthouse when Giuliani was prosecutor, and then Norm Pearlstein, who was the managing editor, then said he wanted to start covering fashion as business. And this was something that, of course, none of the women wanted to do, because then all the women wanted to cover was M&A, and mergers and acquisitions and banking, and that was considered a girl's beat. But I like clothes, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. I think it'll be fun. And then for many years, it was just me writing about the fashion industry. By the time I retired from the Journal in 2009, we had maybe 7 or 8 reporters, and then of course they started the Wall Street Journal magazine. So I was competing with everybody in my own shop. So anyway, but it felt really gratifying to see the beat really develop over all those years. And I got to cover all the great stories. I mean, the globalization of fashion, with Gucci, Prada. In 1997, 40 fashion companies went public. That included Donna Karan and Ralph Lauren, and of course the rise of Armani in Hollywood. And that also kind of a segue to telling you a little bit about my book. So let me just tell you some of this book is an explainer. This is a book that, you all know that there are fashion designers, that there are celebrities that do fashion lines. You hear about them coming out with their perfumes and their fashion lines, but you really don't know what this means and how to connect the dots. And so this is what I have attempted to do in the 2.5 years of doing the library research, also interviewing like 150 people, a lot of people off the record, and then my own institutional memory to exactly really kind of like put this into context. And you'll be surprised about a lot of things that you know. I guarantee you, even if you cover the industry, you don't know half of this stuff, because I discovered a lot of things in doing the research. Okay, the biggest change that happened was dress codes in the mid-90s. I did the very first story when dress codes when people went casual, and it started at Alcoa Aluminum. Alcoa, you all think it's Silicon Valley, but it's Alcoa Aluminum. During their United Way drive, they decided that, they wanted to try to get a lot of people to contribute. So they said, during the 2 weeks, you can wear whatever you want. So in other words, the sooner you contribute, the more days you can wear jeans or whatever. And this is in Pittsburgh. They got 87% participation, the highest it had ever been. And so Ronald Hoffman, I remember this name, he's the executive vice president, said, we don't ever have to go back to wearing suits again. And I went to Pittsburgh several months afterward to see how this was going to play out. And what did I do? Follow the money. I went to go to visit the different stores in town. And they're saying, well, we got Mellon Bank, we've got all these other big companies. This is not going to make a big difference. Well, guess what? It did. Now, it was really funny because at that time, men they were bringing suits to work. They didn't exactly know how they were going to play this, and it was really tricky. But then, IBM went to casual Friday, and then by the mid-90s, all the business casual really happened. This is the biggest game changer in fashion. It has never come back. Even now, even though you see people dressing up, you see the red carpet, it never came back. And this is what I tackled in my first book, at the end of fashion, how marketing changed the clothing business forever. And the challenge was for fashion companies to figure out how to get people to spend money on clothes again. And there was no way they were going to get us to dress up, but they did come up with handbags and expensive shoes and jeans. And those 3 items were items really that people started to spend a lot of money for. When did you start seeing $500 pairs of shoes and $1,000 handbags? All this happened because the industry had to find a new way for people to spend money on clothes. So, and the baby boomers took the bait. We all really were, into collecting a lot of these things. And the great thing about all these accessories is that you didn't have to be young, you didn't have to be thin, you could still wear a great pair of shoes, a great handbag, and so it really did work out. Okay, so then what happened is that now the companies, now we're in this kind of really funny period here, because we've got the Gen X crowd, and these are people in their 40s. Women are now, they're saving to send their kids to college. And they're kind of realizing that, we need to stop this fashion habit. Plus, clothes don't go out of style, so, the handbags that they had and shoes are perfectly fine. They continue to wear it a little bit longer. Okay, then you've got the millennials. Now, millennials, they are between the ages of 18 and 36, and that is the crowd that everybody's chasing. Well, guess what? They are not doing what they're supposed to do. They are not interested in high fashion. They are doing a lot of do-it-yourself. You all have heard this, like Etsy, this do-it-yourself where, put things together. They do a little vintage. They're buying a lot of fast fashion. And they really needed to be marketed to, and they've got to figure out how are we going to engage them. But one thing that they're really interested in are celebrities. And so stores like Macy's and a lot of retailers figured out this might be a way to kind of captivate consumers. Okay, so when I talk about hijacking the runway, a lot of things are hijacking the runway. Celebrities are hijacking the runway, and also fast fashion, because all of them are basically competing with designers. And there's a lot of tension that's going on now, because if you're a designer who's been working all these years, you went to FIT, studied, did all this, and then suddenly, now, Kim Kardashian or somebody, shows up, gets a line and starts selling clothes. I mean, it's like, shoot, this is it's not fair. But, that's the way it is. So anyway, we're gonna, let's hit the lights now. And while I talk, you'll have some pictures to look at. So, let me tell you, I first decided to do this book in, 2005. I did a story about Jessica Simpson. You guys know who she is? Okay, Jessica is the one who, she did a reality show with MTV. And with that show, after the show was over in 2005, she decided she was going to find a way to monetize her brand. And that's what got the whole thing started. She is now a $1 billion company. The Jessica Simpson brand generates more than $1 billion in retail and more than 22 product categories. Crazy. Okay, but let's just take a little stroll and see who's out here doing this. Right, here they are, the Kardashians. Okay, this is a picture from, this picture also from the book, is an Annie Leibovitz picture from during a lot of magazines, and here they are, and all these are Sears clothes. Now, if you saw this ad, wouldn't you hey, I'm gonna go into Sears? You haven't been to Sears for ages. You see these clothes. Now, you're not gonna look like that, but these clothes, that dress, the one that Kim had on was actually a big dress. It sold for $79. But anyway, that really was really a big deal. Okay, here's another one of our hijackers. Okay, Tory Burch. Tory Burch is a socialite, and we put Tory Burch on the same level as Lily Pulitzer, Diane von Furstenberg. These are women who are social women who wear clothes a lot and are in the limelight. And Tory Burch, and here she is with a lot of models. Tory Burch is going to be the next big deal, and I am projecting that I think that she's going to probably go become a public company this year, because all signs are pointing to that. Okay, here's Sarah Jessica Parker. Now, of course, we all know her from Sex and the City, and she is doing a collection of shoes for Nordstrom, which has been really successful so far. Okay, Gwen Stefani. Gwen Stefani did, Gwen Stefani actually is trying to come back and do a big deal, but she actually got there before Jessica. She did a collection called LAMB, and her sales were something like $40 million. Then it kind of quieted down, but she's trying to come back and make some more things happen. Okay, Justin Bieber. We're going to come back to Justin, but Justin Bieber is now the face of Calvin Klein menswear, because Calvin Klein menswear needs to have, some underwear, and they need to have some juice. This is he's like the new Marky Mark, and that's just recently happened since I've done the book. Okay, here's Jennifer Lopez, who's a big character in my book, and this was the first collection that she did called Sweet Face. It did okay, but she came back. Okay, now, here we go. Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton, you guys, this woman is very fascinating. Paris Hilton is the one who basically got this whole thing started. Paris Hilton, now here she is on the runway, and this is for this brand called Heatherette. And she was there just to kind of make the fashion show very animated. But Paris Hilton was the one who, she convinced a lot of companies to pay her to make an appearance. For any little drive-by that she does at a party or whatever, she gets paid, several $100,000. She's the one who really started this, and she also negotiated with the paparazzi to stay there and get a picture taken instead of being, instead of hiding from the paparazzi. But she was very, very clever. Now, Paris, of course, we were in Paris, and she was actually named, this is a little fun fact, she's actually named for this city, because this was her mother's favorite city. Now, Paris comes from a long line of starfuckers, her family. Okay, everybody, the Hiltons, okay, we first go back to Conrad Hilton, her grandfather. Her grandfather, Conrad Hilton, was, now, when he started the hotels and everything, instead of like, when he made all this money, instead of becoming, you know, like trying to move into society, he was really into like the showgirls. And the woman he married was Jean-Jacques Gabor. And Jean-Jacques Gabor had this is a really fun fact, had this needlepoint pillow that said, eat, drink, and remarry. She was one of his, yeah. And anyway, he said, he knew that she was a gold digger. He said he was just happy he could afford her. His son, Nicky, married, got the MGM girl, dream girl, Elizabeth Taylor. They were married for less than 2 years. Okay, then Nicky had a son, Richard, and he dated this woman named Kathleen, who was, and this is Paris's mother, and Kathleen was a minor star, did, you know, Happy Days and some, she was a teenage star. So Paris, and then they had Paris and her brothers and sisters. So the thing is that Paris came from, this was, you know, she was always about, you know, just being a movie star. And she grew up, she said she wanted to be famous. Now, Paris also, now, we see her acting up and doing a lot of crazy things, but she also, if you, now, do you all know what a Paris Hilton handbag looks like? No. Well, nobody does. Because the only place they're sold is in like the Middle East and Brazil and Malaysia and everything else, but she's got 60 stores. She also has a really hot perfume brand. And, you know, Paris is a big deal. She also was one of the first socialite, you know, socialite in her case, just, you know, being a kind of local gadfly, to have a reality show. So Paris is the one that really got it started, and she had a lot to do with really teaching celebrities how to get paid. She checked all the boxes, and she was also a model for Donald Trump. And I said in the book, I said her dramatic talent was neither great nor necessary, because all she really had to worry about doing was just like playing the role of herself, as just kind of acting out. And for some reason, there are a lot of young women who think that she's a cool role model. Okay. Okay, now, Katherine Heigl. Okay, you all know, remember Izzy from the Grey's Anatomy? Okay, Peach's uniform company decided that they were going to use Katherine Heigl to, like, you know, come up with these are like scrubs for doctors and dentist office. So Katherine Heigl, this just goes to show you how every brand feels like it needs a celebrity connected with it. So this 2007, here's the Katherine Heigl collection for Peaches uniform. Okay, now let's like go back a little bit into a little history, because this is really fun. I mean, this is when you're doing a book like this and doing the research, it's so fun to like really like drill down and see where all this starts out from. Now, celebrities and fashion have always, you know, had a connection, and this is Joan Crawford in Letty Light. This is a movie in 1932, and this dress that she wore, this was Adrian, the designer Adrian, who's the one who put Joan Crawford in shoulder pads. And he designed this dress for her. He did most of her movies. This dress sold 50,000 copies at Macy's. Now, this is 1930s. We're talking about during the Depression. And this was the prom dress of that year. Okay, now, here's Audrey Hepburn. And we're back in Paris, and this is a great, right? Here she is with Givenchy. Now, we all know, you know, what Givenchy and Audrey Hepburn did for each other. And especially, you know, he did a perfume for her, but guess what? She had to pay retail for the perfume. He never gave her free perfume. And her husband finally said, okay, Givenchy, it's time for you to, like, you know, you need to, like, give us, you know, you need to give us some money, because, you know, Audrey has done so much for your persona. But she was like, we couldn't, you know, she was really nervous about asking for that, because she felt like, no, this is a friendship. But, you know, for Givenchy, I mean, he was getting a lot out of it. So anyway, they actually did negotiate something, so she got paid. We don't know what it was. But according to her, and all this came from her her publicist, Henry Rogers. So anyway, so this was back in the days when, it was, no celebrity would really ask for anything because, they considered it an honor to wear someone's clothes. Okay, back now we're still in Paris here, and here's René Lacoste. René Lacoste is the first celebrity fashion brand, or I'm gonna call him, and he also is the first logo, because his he was known as the Crocodile. That was his nickname as a tennis player. You all also know that he invented the metal tennis racket, the one that Jimmy Connors played with, the Wilson T2000. He invented that racket and sold it to Wilson. And that was the one that, and he also invented the ball machine. I'm a tennis player, so this is anyway. But René Lacoste came up with that, with the Lacoste shirt, because he was tired of, because tennis players were wearing like long sleeve shirts. He came up with the knit shirt, had a manufacturer make it, and they won. And it became like a big brand. Okay, so here we are back to Nick and Jessica. Now here they are in the Newlyweds. Remember that show? And after that show, she really was just somebody who everybody emulated and wanted to be like her. She had so many fans. And so she first started a jeans brand, and that's the one that I said that I wrote about. That didn't do well. And then she got rescued by a man named Vince Camuto, who started Nine West. And Nine West Shoes, we all know Nine West Shoes because that was the big shoe brand that started in the 70s. Now, Vince Camuto just died last week before last. And I'm like one of the few people who ever got to interview him over all these years, but he was a really terrific marketer. He is also the one who's behind Tory Burch. And once again, this is a case of where shoes and handbags, those are the sweet spots in fashion. And Jessica Simpson is known for her platform shoe that became a really hot shoe for young women, and it was comfortable, so a lot of women like wearing it. And of course, Tory Burch had the ballet slipper that they sold more than 5 million pairs. It's called the Reva. And so those are two like cash cows. When you have those two things in your fashion business, you have a chance. Okay, and here's Rachel Zoe. Now, Rachel Zoe, as we all know, is a stylist, but Rachel Zoe was the one who's responsible for Jessica Simpson's look. When she first started, when she first moved from, her family moved from Texas to Hollywood, Tommy Mottola from Sony was trying to help her. They were trying to make her a singer, and she was 17 and she didn't have any look, and so they hired Rachel Zoe to help her develop her look. Okay, and here's Jessica now. Now that was the one in her freshman days before she started having the kids and everything, but but this is her modeling her shoes and handbags. And as I said, these things have been a colossal success at Macy's and a lot of other stores. And the other thing that's interesting about it is that in Greece and in Spain and places like that, women do not even know who she is. It's just a brand. So that's really the case when a brand actually turns into a brand where it does not need, and there's not the celebrity following it. It's just strictly a brand that people want to buy because they buy it once, they buy it twice, they keep buying it and buying other products to go with it. Okay, this is the front row. Now the front row actually got started. When you think about celebrities in the front row of fashion show, this is actually at a Hervé Leger show, and these are some celebrities here. But how this got started was when I first started coming to the fashion business, they used to have, there was, the runway was elevated and they had photographers all around the runway. When we moved to the tents, the photographers moved to the back, so they came up with a photographer's pit. So suddenly, and the runway went straight to the floor. So then the whole configuration of the room changed, and so the celebrities, you now had really had a front row where it was actually in view with the runway, and that is what really created the front row, because then it became really necessary to have some people there to get their pictures taken. And I had talked to Fern Malice, who was one of the people who helped create Fashion Week, and she said she's estimating that something like 20 to 30% of photographers who come to the shows don't even come to shoot the clothes, they come just to shoot the people on the front row. And that's also in addition to, remember, you've got all the people who are actually at the show who got their cell phone cameras, so they're Instagramming and everything else. Okay, this here's Jennifer Lopez in 1998. And Vanity Fair. This is one of her first pictures. And Jennifer Lopez, of course, as we all know, she's the one who made, big butts a big deal. And, before the Kardashians and everything else. But Jennifer Lopez also, and I have a whole chapter of her in the book about how she's the one who, after Liz Taylor was the one who started selling a celebrity fragrance. In fact, she's the one who brought celebrity fragrances back in 2002. And her fragrances are J-Lo Glow and Miami Glow. They're like more than 18 of them. Okay, here's one of the bottles. Now, if you look at this bottle closely, you will notice on the right side is bigger than the left side, because that is her butt. Wow. And the way Cody says, when Captain Walsh from Cody, who I interviewed, who was the one who helped get this whole thing started, said that one of the things, because when they're trying to romance a celebrity, get them to get interested in something, they have to really get into their head. So she drew on a piece of paper this and she made one side, and she said, that's your butt. Of course, Jennifer loved this. Now, most consumers would never know about that, but that's a little fun fact. Okay, now Jennifer Lopez, as you all know, dated Sean Puffy Combs, and Puffy was known for, he's not really a rapper, he was more of a producer. But he was the one who really made fashion shows like really big parties. He would spend $1 million and do a big fashion show and have all these people here. And here's one of his shows. And that's Tyson Bedford, who's a hot model with him. And here he is in one of his ads. He also was responsible for Estee Lauder. Estee Lauder was trying to find, how can we reach these millennials? How can we reach all these young, cool people? And because they said our brand's getting kind of stale, so they signed up Sean Combs to do a fragrance called Unforgivable, which was a great success. Now here's one of the ads of Puffy in a suit. Now he is not, he sold like jeans and t-shirts and casual clothes, but this was all part of the imagery to give, a sense of this whole kind of jet set thing. And this was a really, really big part of that. Now, Michael Kors, I want to talk about a little bit, because Michael Kors is an example of a designer who became a celebrity. Now, Michael Kors, for years, all of us who covered him, he was, it wasn't really a preppy brand, but it was a brand that was classic fashion, very expensive, and, something that it had a New York following, but that was basically it. But 10 years on Project Runway, as, the affable, the only designer on the show, really, really made his brand take off. And as a result, the company did go public in 2012. Michael Kors is now a billionaire. And this is all from Project Runway, a show actually, which I was a guest judge on the show in 2007. He actually asked me to do it, and it was, we didn't get paid anything. It was a lot of fun. And this show really, really did put him on the map. And this is a case of this is what designers have to do. If you want to be a designer now and you want to make it, you either have to have a really strong celebrity surrogate, or you have to become a celebrity. And okay, who's done that? Tom Ford has done this. Okay, Karl Lagerfeld has done this. And Michael Kors is another example. Now, obviously, he didn't plan this, but he was just lucky. That was just fortuitous. At his shows, he also has a lot of celebrities. So he plays both ways. He's a celebrity, and he has celebrities like Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas, who are always usually front row at his shows. Okay, now, we're looking at stars. This is the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and you see the stars here. And this is something that a store called Macy's said, we think we need to do something with this. Now look at this Macy's store, and you see that red star, and you also see the star on the apostrophe of Macy's. That star actually has a great history. Roland Macy, who started the company in 1858, was, when he grew up, he was on a whaling ship in Nantucket. They got lost in a storm, and a star sent them, they would use the star to guide them back to safety. So afterwards, he had a red tattoo of a star put on his wrist. So when he started his company, he put the star as apostrophe. Now, little did he know that 150 years later, that this was going to be, a really big part of their company. So you see all the stars. This is Material Girl, which is Madonna's brand, is sold at Macy's. And Macy's, I have a really fun chapter in the book just explaining about how Macy's has used the whole celebrity star thing as a big deal for them. Did you all remember seeing any of those commercials that Macy's did at Christmas where you'd see Jessica Simpson and Donald Trump and all those guys? Those commercials were done by Barry Levinson. Barry Levinson is the director of Rain Man. He's an Oscar-winning director. He is the one who directed those commercials. I mean, Macy's spent a whole lot of money on this because they really saw this was a way to bring in young people in the store. They knew that they couldn't go with the usual, like, designer thing. They needed something that was going to bring a lot of excitement. And even though that, a lot of those events happen in New York, they used that footage and put it on YouTube, and you see it elsewhere. Okay, when Lady Gaga launched her fragrance, okay, this was some of the hoopla that went with that when she was at Macy's. And here's Carlos Santana. Now, okay, do you all know Carlos Santana has one of the really hottest women's shoes? When I first saw Carlos Santana's shoes, I just thought it was just some other person named Carlos Santana, but this is actually the Carlos Santana of Raxus. This is Carlos Santana. Now, why would he have a shoe line? Well, he has nothing to do with fashion. He's a musician, but he decided that he wanted to get into fashion because he wanted to get money for his charity. And so he hooked up with Brown Shoe Group in St. Louis. And the guy who was the president of Brown also was really into music and stuff. So, so they connected and they did the shoe. And he came out with his shoes before Jessica Simpson. And they're doing really well. So here he is at Macy's. And here's Justin Bieber. Here he is back. He's got two fragrances, one called Someday and another one called Girlfriend. And they both are really sweet fragrances. But, Macy's was thrilled to be able to launch him. Now, it wasn't like, Justin Bieber went to Macy's went to Justin Bieber and said, Justin, we want you to do a fragrance. And he's like, I'm not interested in doing a fragrance. He said, yeah, we want you to do a fragrance. And we also, and we think that this would be a good way for you to make a lot of money. And he said, well, I'm making a lot of money. He said, well, how about your foundation? That did it. So he agreed to do a fragrance, and he agreed to do 2 fragrances the first year and then the next year. And Macy's used that whole fragrance of Justin Bieber as a way to help launch their Black Friday sales during Christmas. So this was all part of their strategy. Worked out really well. Okay, now we're back to the Kardashians at Sears. And these girls, okay, I went, you guys, to the first year after they did Sears, I wanted to go back and see how it had done. So I went to actually they fortunately did an event in Yonkers, in New York, and I went there to go and see how, what was going to happen, because the girls were actually there on hand. And I'm telling you, it was pandemonium. All these people had camped out overnight, and they had everything on sale, and it was really cool. Now, the rest of the series is still as very shabby as we know it, but it brought a lot of traffic in. At this point now, we're kind of wondering if the stuff is kind of shaky, but at the same point, but it's still working. Okay, in the fashion industry, as I said, with all these hijackers, as I call them, the hijackers who are really making it happen in the high end, there are only 2 that have pierced through the ceiling, and that's Victoria Beckham and the Olsens. Okay, Victoria Beckham, and here she is in her studio working, and here she is modeling one of her dresses. And here she is with David Beckham and this is a Roberto Cavalli dress that she has on. And Victoria Beckham has done a really tremendous job doing her collection. She came out with, very tight-fitting clothes, and she knew that there were women who liked that look. The clothes are really expensive. They don't manufacture too many of them, so they're always scarce. You could never find them. They're overpriced, as Connie's saying. These dresses are like $3,000-$4,000 here, but she's really taking off. And the other one who's really worked is the Olsen sisters with their brand called The Row, which has, doesn't even have their name on it. Now, the case with both of these brands is that these are not companies where you have, these are not groupies who buy these clothes. These are people who like the women who are wealthy are not buying something because it's Victoria Beckham. They're buying it because they like it. And I actually interviewed some consumers. I always do that in my stories to make certain that, to just really kind of see what their motivation was. And the Olsens with the Row, they're doing really expensive basics. They have a $2,900 leather legging that they can't keep in stock. I mean, it's like one of their big sellers. I mean, you know, it's like, who's buying it? But a lot of women are. So they have really, you know, been a really big deal. The thing that I found out that with the whole fashion business, when you're looking at also at a lot of the, you know, the housewives. I mean, you look at all these people who have jumped into the celebrity business, and people are saying, but their brands don't last that long. But you know, retailers love that. You know why? Because they can come out with a new one. The great thing about celebrities is that it's a lot of pop, you got a lot of bang, and then, you know, once people get tired, by the time they get tired of it, it's time for a new brand. So they can keep, and people have a short attention span anyway, so it plays right into that. And the other thing is too, the reason why celebrities are so into this is because, you know, they have to find a way to make money. Celebrities don't make money anymore. If you are an actress or a singer, you're not making any money. I mean, okay, when the Friends, you know that show with Jennifer Aniston, the last season that was on, the 8 stars in that show were making $1 million per episode, each star. Those paydays are over as far as TV is concerned. There are all these TV stations, you know, we've got Netflix, we've got, you know, Amazon, all these people are now making, so the thing is that actors are not making, you've got a lot of people who are famous who are not making money. So they're trying to figure a way, how can they monetize their brand? They're famous, so, you know, they'll get paid to go to events, and, you know, if they get to a certain stage, they'll say like, hey, you know, I look pretty good, maybe I can find somebody, maybe I can find a Vince Commuter or somebody to help launch me and get into the fashion business. So that's why you're seeing all this activity. Okay, you know, like, for example, now Beyonce had done a brand, and it didn't do that well, but now she's now back again because she's hooked up with Topshop, and they want to do something with her that's going to be with athletic wear. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And Rihanna is now going to be doing she's going to creative director at Puma, and so all these, and of course, you know, Pharrell with the hat and everything, he's been doing a lot of collaborations with different fashion companies. So fashion brands have, you know, so, you know, this symbiotic relationship continues. Meanwhile, there are a few designers who are trying to figure out how they can make it work. Should they, you know, Alexander Wang has a much more, you know, he's got a persona as being kind of a fun club kid, and that helps out. And, you know, and then others like Narciso Rodriguez are not really that interested in being celebrities. They just want to do their thing, and, you know, and they'll grow to a certain level. But it's, you know, it's something that's really just fascinating when you see that, you know, consumers are really, you know, people really like celebrities. They put their trust in them. They think they're cool, and, you know, and they buy, you know, and people buy. So anyway, I want to bring up, I wanted to bring you all in on this, because, you know, this is every time I have one of these talks, it's always great, because everybody has so many, because we're all experts, we all buy clothes, we all wear clothes, and we all, you know, have an opinion about it. But, so.
How did Anna Wintour help you?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I did interview Anna for the book, and the funny thing is that a lot of people would think that, you know, how would she feel about this? She totally gets it. I mean, Anna basically said that, hey, you know, this is like the way of the world now. This is, you know, this whole social media thing, and every designer has to have something, you know, they've got to have some kind of connection with celebrities. And she talked about Tom Ford and Carl as being part of them, and part of the Vogue Fashion Funds, where they, you know, bring in new young designers to, they give them awards and everything and help them out. She said one of the criteria that they look at is their kind of social media profile, and how, you know, and how comfortable are they at being, you know, in front of people and talking and everything, because this is really a big part of it, because people, shoppers they're not just buying intrinsic value. I mean, you've got a whole generation of shoppers who, I mean, okay, I grew up, you know, where we had Sunday clothes, and you know, everything was not stretched and small, medium, and large, and you had to clothes had to be ironed and everything else. But you have a whole generation, many generations now, a couple of generations of consumers who do not have that kind of connoisseurship. And it has nothing to do with, you know, their socioeconomic level. You've got the world's richest man, Bill Gates, who, you know, never wore a suit to work. And so, you know, the suit and dressy clothes are just, you know, there's just not a big demand for them. And so, you know, fashion designers, if you're in the fashion business, you got to find a new way to engage people. And the celebrity thing plays really well because it's like I said, and the other thing is too, is that people are not shopping. People are doing a lot of their shopping online. And the one thing about the celebrity thing, I mean, Macy's will tell you, it's a way to get people in the store because it, you know, makes the store seem like, you know, exciting and dynamic. And so, you know, it's a way to get people who don't hang out at the mall anymore.
Can you tell us a bit more about the history of fashion over the last few years?
What's happened is this, is that sales have like shifted in other areas. I mean, you look at companies like Gucci and these companies and Prada, the big part of their business is shoes and handbags. It's not clothes. They basically do fashion shows to sell shoes and handbags. Yeah, all those clothes that you see on the runway, all that fashion show, that is noise so they can sell shoes and handbags and watches and yeah. And perfume, but perfume isn't as big as it used to be because there, I mean, you know, like I said, the reason why J-Lo has 18 fragrances is you have to come out with a fragrance every 2 or 3 months. I mean, you know, at least 2 or 3 times a year because they go in and out so quickly. And so the pie has not necessarily gotten much bigger. It's as much as it's been sliced in a lot of little smaller pieces. And a lot of fashion companies now, because they can't make the money in the United States, are trying to sell abroad. And if they can find some of the, you know, in some of the developing countries, you know, like Brazil, like China, like Russia, where you have, you know, consumers who are still kind of like excited about designers. I mean, so that's where a lot of that business is going. But here in the States, I mean, you notice J. Crew sales are down. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, there's just, because people are just not, they're not shopping the way they used to. And as I said, and then you've got this whole thing with the boomers who are not buying, you know, they've got all they really need and they're not really replacing as much as they used to. So it's a very, very competitive business.
You mentioned Michelle Obama. Why does she appear in your book?
Oh, yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, because Michelle Obama is she's a kind of a celebrity role model, and she's had a lot to do with getting people, and she's worn a lot of fashion by a lot of young designers, and she's worn J. Crew, so she's mixed it up a lot, and so I think she's added to the interest the same way that Kate Middleton. Also, too, you know, there's a website with Kate Moore. There used to be one called MrsO.com. And these were, you know, sites that, because, you know, once again, people are looking for people to emulate. So I mean, I think she's been more of a kind of ambassador, but I don't think that she's really done anything to really generate, like, big sales.
Do you think that scandals involving celebrities increase sales, like Brooke Shields in the risque Calvin Klein jeans ad?
Well, I think it is with Paris Hilton. I think with Paris Hilton, because she has that scandalous kind of reputation, there were a lot of young women who kind of did not necessarily want to be like her, but they kind of thought that there was something kind of cool and racy about it. I mean, I think that's why she sells abroad, because the stereotype of Paris Hilton is this kind of like, you know, crazy, you know, blonde American who's like, going to clubs and partying and everything, and I think that perhaps helps her some. But it's just a recognition thing. I mean, just think of Kim Kardashian and her sisters. Now, you know, their show, I mean, what do? Go shopping and you know, there's just not that much there. But then again, but let me tell you, it's not only just clothes. Paris, let me tell you, what's also interesting about the Kardashians is this. They are like this ethnic melting pot. They track Latina, they track Jewish, they track Black, a lot of women identify with their look. They've also been important for a lot of things. For example, there are a lot of companies that make a lot of the dark eye makeup, the little smoky eye, that they're responsible for that. All the wig companies online have like Chloe wigs and Kim wigs. I mean, that whole look. And you will see, I mean, let me tell you, in New York, you go to like parties, you'll see a lot of these like Kardashian lookalikes who wear the tight dresses and the long black hair and all that. So they have been responsible for a lot of, you know, they are trendy. And, they, like it or not, they certainly do have, but, I mean, it's funny, because see, this is a more mature crowd that's here, and we all kind of wonder, like, do you take your cues from celebrities? Heck no. But let me tell you, I have some Jessica Simpson shoes, and I'm really happy with them. And I know when I first bought them, and I've also, when I was interviewing people, a lot of people said, "Oh, these are Jessica Simpson shoes," but don't tell anybody, because a lot of women were really kind of embarrassed. But the shoes are good. The shoes are good, and they worked. And once they got to the point where they worked, and the people aren't buying those now because she started off the show. That show was like 2003. So those people are buying those because they like the items. So
You haven't mentioned Ivanka Trump.
Ivanka, yeah, in fact, in the book, because there's so many celebrities, and I have an appendix, and I have listed like all the celebrity brands that we could. I had a couple of interns help me, and we tried to find all the brands in fashion and in fragrance. The first fragrance was Jean-Jacques Gabor, a Zigzag, in 1969, and then after that was Elizabeth Taylor, and it was Elizabeth Taylor with Passion and White Diamonds. Yeah, but. Yeah, there are so many of them and they come and they go, and all the housewives. And I have a really fun chapter in the book where I talk about all the housewives who, from the housewives of Atlanta, the housewives from Beverly Hills, who all, of course, try to find a way to monetize their fame by, because everybody wants to be a designer, everybody wants to be in fashion. I don't get it, but they do, and it's really funny. I also have a really fun story in the book about Kanye West. Kanye came here to Paris to do his first show, and he was really nervous about it. And of course, instead of like, the one thing about the Victoria Beckham and the Olsens, when they did they like tiptoed into this, because they said, we want to get this right, we want to figure this out. Kanye's like, no, I got to be on the big stage in Paris, I got to do like a big show. So here it's July, before the show's in October, it's July, he's like, oh shoot, I'm not ready. So he starts going around to try to get help. And he goes to a designer named Ralph Rucci, who is like one of the big, he is like a serious couture designer in the United States, to get help. And this was a story that nobody knew. Ralph Rucci and I happened to be friends, and he called me and said, hey Teri, I know you're working on that book, why don't we have dinner? So we had dinner, and he told me the story, and it is like delicious. So, in fact, a lot of people read the book said that it was worth buying the book just for that anecdote. So anyway, it's just, as I said, it's a really, really, fascinating just look at how, consumers, people have turned into like Philistines, and we're so influenced by celebrities.
How do you characterize a phenomenon like Tommy Hilfiger?
No, it's funny because Tommy's also in the book too, and I have a long section about him. Yeah, Tommy Hilfiger was, he's from Elmira, New York, and he had a little store, a jean store, and then he decided he wanted to be a designer, and this guy named Mohan Rajani came to him and said, we're gonna make you a brand, and they like put him on the brand, but then he always called himself a marketing vehicle because he was really not necessarily a designer. But he also was one of the first guys. He was a pioneer in this area, in that he like brought in music. The whole idea of having, dressing the rockers, even before he did the rappers, he was doing Pete Townshend's tour. He was dressing the Rolling Stones, and it really, really did put his brand on the map. And then he got in with the rappers, and it made that. That was the explosive brand in the 1990s, a really successful public company. And he is the one who also taught Puffy and Russell Simmons, who both wanted to get into the fashion business. He taught them how to start the business, and he owns half of Jennifer Lopez's fashion business. All this is in the book. I explained to you how all this happened, because he is the one who actually put Jennifer Lopez in.
So do you think American designers are designing the American lifestyle for countries like China or Russia and not for America?
Industry is famously opaque. What you see, like I said, what you see on the runway and what you see in the showroom are two different things. And so what you see is they do. You look at Dolce & Gabbana, you look at the way a lot of things are manufactured, and it's clear the really big logos and all that, because they are celebrating those countries who want that look. Because I always ask, why would you put all those logos on things? Because most people who buy those clothes wouldn't do that. But they're like, yeah, but we know we've got our market in the Middle East, we got our market in these countries, and we want to sell them. So yeah, and then they do make special collections too for certain markets that you won't see anywhere else, because that's the way to, because they want to engage those shoppers.
Are Jessica Simpson's clothing and shoes made outside the United States?
Big business, I know, in Greece, in Spain. You know, her shoes are sold in a lot of other countries, but a lot of this is domestic. Yeah, I know, it's fascinating. I mean, it's a lot of different, yeah, because Viz Commuto and the Commuto organization has been really savvy in choosing the right people to make clothes, choosing the right people to design them. I mean, you know, this is, you know, it takes a village to do this. And if you get a good manufacturer, and that's why, really, if you get a good manufacturer, you can sell anything. You get a good manufacturer, and then you get the right brand name with it. And that's why I always tell a lot of young designers who are coming out, you know, you guys need to work for somebody else, because you're not, the dream of having your own collection and be able to say in your own name and lights, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I mean, you know, I hate to be bad news bears, but it's the truth. Because let's just think about it. I said, what's Hijacking the Runway? In addition, like I said, all the fast fashion companies. I mean, with Uniqlo and H&M and Zara and those places, and you guys, you know yourselves how much more you're buying from those stores than you used to, and, you know, and you don't need to spend, you know, thousands of dollars for clothes.
Banana Republic is in Paris as well, and they are doing extremely well.
The other thing that they're doing too is that you notice a lot of the brands are then bringing in celebrities. I mean, like Kate Hudson is helping market Ann Taylor. And, you know, these are something else that, you know, the established fashion brands are trying to do, because they still, that celebrity pull is really important. It does get people, it gets eyeballs to look up. Not me as a consumer, not you as a consumer, but a lot of people.
You focus a lot on young celebrities. What about middle-aged figures?
I mean, I've heard that, for example, I've heard that Vanessa Williams is trying to look into you know, finding a way to do a fashion brand. And so I think that there are others that are trying. But, you know, the thing is, the weird thing about the fashion industry is there's still this whole kind of youth thing going on. And even though it's so funny, a lot of people say, well, I'd like to have people look like me. No, you don't. When you're looking at ads, you really want to look at young people. Not necessarily young people in short dresses and weird stuff, but you do want to look at young people. And that's why all the pictures are airbrushed, and why, you know, why when you see the celebrities in person, you're like, is this the same person? Because they look so different from what they look in ads, because it's all fake. I mean, seriously, it's all fake. Because you know, this is part of you know, just the marketing of people. And, you know, it's really been fun, just like I said, covering this industry all these years. But this particular kind of crazy period that we're in with the celebrity thing, I mean, beyond the red carpet, is something that is kind of astounding to me too.